Hi there, this is Mr. Nobody bringing you another installment of Making Nobody Happy. And so today we're going to talk about what is a false god. Now, this probably sounds very abstract and religious, but I think it's actually something worth thinking about. And if you're someone who's, for example, read Gad Saad's book about mind parasites, I think what you realize is that in some way he's actually talking in modern terms about ideas that have actually been around for a long time. So let's look at it though through this lens of what a false god is. So a false god is any finite and limited thing, any desire, any ideology, any program, any belief that has been elevated to the level of a divine universal. And our pantheon today is just as rich as that of any age, perhaps more so. Our rituals, our displays, and our fervor are just as earnest in the modern era as those of our ancestors. And I don't mean all that metaphorically. This is what false gods are, what they always have been. How the gods are conceived or personified or identified or ritualized, what devotion to them means, changes from age to age and from culture to culture. So all people find acceptable ways of monumentalizing and conceptualizing their gods within the language, conditions, conventions, and artistic and social displays of their time. But the underlying nature of the gods, the underlying nature of what they mean to their followers, does not change very much through the ages because people change very little, especially in such a short time span as a few thousand years. And it's only modern hubris that imagines people today are so very different from those they're only a few scant generations away from. Now, the state can be a god, safety can be a god, the home can be a god, diet or exercise can be a god, rationality, money, generosity, risk, fashion, sex, respectability can be a god. Look through the actual lists of the gods of many culture, and you'll just find a list of all the things those cultures valued. And a lot of them are the same things that we value today. And it's quite clear that many of these cultures were quite aware of the ritualized and iconographic nature of those gods. While it's have so many of them and such specific gods, gods of poetry, of archery, gods of housekeeping, gods of sexual conquest, gods of generosity to beggars, vengeance for jilted lovers, oratory, strategic planning, wine, celebration, fieldwork, the environment, justice, just about anything that you could imagine, all of the things that people value. That's what the gods are. So are we really so different except by cultural convention? We set up avatars of our ideals and we give them our reverence and we make sacrifices to them of our time and goods so that we can enjoy their blessings. All gods say the same thing. Give me your devotion. Make me the first in your life. This value isn't just a thing. This value is the thing. Build your life upon it and you will be rewarded. I mean, just spend some time on Facebook and you will discover a host of worshipers and their idols and their gods. So the symbology of the gods was well understood in ancient times, even if it wasn't always analyzed. It was fully articulated through story and ritual. And sometimes it was analyzed even hundreds of generations ago. Socrates in 400 BC has this long conversation with a priest where they remark on the fact that to most of the Greeks, the myths were understood to be metaphor and symbolism, but no less true or defining of human life for all that. Devotion to a god, to an ideal, and a praxis, which is a practice, the way you pursue it, your value, something we represent to ourselves with an avatar of what we wish to be and pursue through a path of devotion and the proclamation of the superiority and divinity of our ideal and our desire to embody it. That's what they did. That's what they saw themselves doing. That's what we do. That's what we see ourselves doing. Now, whether the religious nature of such devotion, ritual, and proclamation is understood or not, it happens and it does its work. the functionality is contained in the activity, even when its nature isn't fully consciously understood. Like the NBA doesn't literally exist as a thing, although it has personified avatars we revere as its representatives. Despite not being an actual thing in any sense, it is quite real and quite powerful in this world that humans inhabit, which is as much humanity itself and its desires, beliefs, values, conventions, inventions, and ideals as it is any physical reality. The world we inhabit isn't just a physical place, it's a social place. It's a world of ideas and relationships and values. We live within one another and within what we all value and believe in. Now, the key insight of the idea of a false God is twofold. First, it's the realization that a God may not have the power over its domain that it has claimed. Devotion to that God may not give you the proper pathway to understanding and competence within that realm of being, nor be an actual means to the envisioned ideal. In this way, one God can defeat or supplant another within their realm if they prove to be stronger, often through the success or failure of their followers, whether that be the God of a nation or the God of a specific personal interest or devotion. You think of, sometimes I think that the different diets out there and exercise plans are kinds of devotions and gods waging war against each other. So in that sort of case, better gods end up replacing less adequate and successful gods through a kind of empirical testing process. Just like specific scientific and psychological theories are tested and replaced by stronger, more effective ones that explain things better and get the results you want better. So the previous gods were adequate and true enough, but they proved false in the testing as they fell before truer, more powerful, more adequate gods. Now, the second and far more abstract and theoretical sense of false godhood is the challenge that comes from Judaism. So this is, whereas the previous challenge was more of a, a polytheistic way that the gods war with each other and challenge each other and prove each other false. This is the monotheistic challenge to the idea of false gods. So this is the challenge from Judaism, which questions not merely the adequacy of the gods, but rather the entire conception of the elevation of the finite to the level of the infinite. So under Judaism, they'd say nothing less than the ultimate, which contains all, deserves to be elevated to the level of the divine. And only that which contains all and orders all beneath it and within it can truly be set in the place of worship. And that is the only way to avoid idolatry. So that's all for today. We'll see you next time.